Graffiti, skating, anti-authoritarianism, and funk. Those are the 4 words I'd use to describe the classic Sega franchise Jet Set Radio. Sadly, it's been 21 years since we last saw DJ Professor K and the GGs. While there have been games that have come and gone in that time that have tried to recreate their spirit, none have ever been as successful or as high quality as Bomb Rush Cyberfunk. In fact, I would go as far as to say that Team Reptile has created the Jet Set Radio 3 that never was. Just to get the most important aspect out of the way first, the soundtrack here is utterly phenomenal, easily landing itself alongside what Sega created 2 decades ago with JSR. Including artists like Soya, Klaus Veen, Be Extreme, Too Mellow, and the funky uncle himself Hideki Naganuma, I absolutely plan to listen to this OST for years to come, and could easily see myself buying a vinyl record of it for the record player I don't own. If I had one complaint with the game's sound, it would be with the pacing and the amount of said music. While you can find CDs in the world that let you play specific songs, you'll be listening to a mixtape of select tracks for the area, meaning you'll be hearing the same handful of tunes until you can unlock more. Depending on the area and how much time you spend in it, the music can get repetitive and tiring. This problem does lessen the further in you get, but I do wish there was more variety in the early game. Upon starting, the first thing to really surprise me was the inclusion of an actual story. While the Jet Set duology had stories, it was never really the focus of those games, and it mostly acted as context and justification for the gameplay. Bomb Rush, however, puts effort into telling a story with plot twists and a focus on characters. You play as Red, a robot called a Cyberhead made using the body of a man named Foe who was decapitated by DJ Cyber, the leader of a gang known as Futurism. Wanting to learn who he was before his creation, Red joins up with Trice and Bell of the Bomb Rush crew, who aim to go all city by beating out their rivals and claiming their territory. What follows is a story about identity, police corruption, and graffiti warfare. The story of Bomb Rush starts off fairly strong, setting up a number of engaging mysteries and characters while also embracing the cyberpunk genre and telling a story that does more than make use of its aesthetics. However, I found a number of the revelations to be underwhelming and half-baked. Certain plot twists feel forced, with character motivations that don't feel properly set up. 1 or 2 characters also end up feeling like nothing more than plot devices or conveniences. Despite this, I still feel like I know and care about these characters way more than I did the ones in Jet Set Radio. There are plenty of great ideas here, and I can tell there is a genuinely good story buried underneath it, but in execution, it ends up feeling like a first draft. Where Bomb Rush Cyberfunk truly shines is in its gameplay. Structurally, BRC is more akin to Jet Set Radio Future's adventure game format as opposed to the original's arcadey mission-based one, with each level connected via a central hub. However, Bomb Rush avoids Future's annoying backtracking by keeping the layout of the world simple while also having an unlockable fast travel system in the form of a rocket-propelled taxi you summon by breakdancing. In order to add an area to the list, you have to find its taxi sign. While some areas it's quite easy to locate, in the bigger, more complex ones, it can feel like finding a needle in a haystack. Level design is like a combination of the best areas in both Jet Set Radio and Jet Set Radio Future. Every time I returned to an old spot, I ended up finding new places to go, new secrets that required mastery of the game's mechanics, and unlockable characters and color variants. Even after beating the game, I plan on jumping back in to continue exploring and see what more I can find. Though you start off playing as Red, you'll be unlocking more characters to play as the further into the game you get, each with one of 3 modes of transportation. For instance, while Red rides around on a skateboard, Bell chooses a pair of skates while Trice prefers a bike. However, while they default to one style, you can switch any character to any of the other options. Ultimately, what you ride around on doesn't change how the game plays or feels. The only difference between them is what tricks you can perform. From the second I took control, movement felt incredibly satisfying. Whether I was grinding on rails or walking around, I felt utterly in control of my character. A major factor in this is the ability to jump off your skateboard in favor of running around on your 2 feet by simply pressing the left shoulder button. While slower, jumping off your ride makes interacting with certain NPCs and landing on smaller platforms much easier. Another benefit of switching off your board is the slide button. By pressing the right trigger in any movement style, you can perform a trick that keeps your current combo going while on the ground. While every style has a timer, some areas offer slick surfaces that let you slide infinitely, as well as paths you can only access by sliding, encouraging you to jump on and off your ride while stylishly making your way through each level. For the face buttons, the bottom one acts as a jump button, while the other three are left as different tricks you can perform. By performing one trick after another, you can keep your speed up and gain points for your current combo, which is vital in completing certain challenges throughout the world. The challenges you'll often face require you to perfectly recreate a series of tricks, gain a high enough score within the specified time, or graffiti a specific point on the map. The graffiti system in Bomb Rush Cyberfunk is incredibly fast and frenetic, asking you to connect anywhere from 5 to 7 dots depending on the size of the canvas. How you connect these dots affects what graffiti you'll leave behind, with more and more options being unlocked as rewards for challenges or being found hidden in each map. This graffiti system is a ton of fun, and it's incredibly accessible while allowing you to paint the town with tons of different art pieces. Plus, if you paint something you don't like, you can just paint over it with something else. The biggest mechanical difference from JSR is the inclusion of jetpacks. While it doesn't offer vertical movement, it can be used to push your jump just a little bit further by double tapping the jump button. I often used it to make sure I landed on grind rails and to attempt instant course corrections. If the boost gauge in the bottom right has any fuel in it, you can spend it to send yourself flying by holding down the left trigger, quickly getting through large areas and getting to specific points on the map. Sadly, it's with this boost that I come to the weakest aspect of Bomb Rush Cyberfunk's gameplay. Combat consists of performing tricks to hit enemies, spraying them with graffiti, and ramming them while using your jetpack. Upon your first encounter, it is not communicated how exactly you're meant to fight back. What feedback there is feels more like you're just bumping into them as opposed to actually hurting them. And it was only by constant repetition did I finally realize how much damage I needed to do in order to defeat each enemy type. Thankfully, there are only a handful of moments where you're forced to fight someone, but those moments are easily the low point. However, this only really applies to fighting human-sized enemies. Fights against giant contraptions like helicopters, turrets, or mechs are better, acting less like something to ram into and more like an extension of the environment itself, while also requiring less hits and having clearly marked graffiti points to defeat them with. In terms of performance, Bomb Rush Cyberfunk ran perfectly on my laptop, sporting a 1660 Ti, an i7 core processor, and 8 gigs of memory. The game regularly ran at over 300 FPS at 1080p, with the only hiccup being the occasional visual glitch, like a character model freaking out. While I wasn't able to try it out on the Switch, I cannot imagine this game requiring any visual downgrading or having poor performance so long as it's properly optimized. Everything that made Jet Set Radio a cult classic franchise is perfectly recreated and improved upon. While there are issues with the execution of the story and the game's awkward combat, at its core is a love letter to a franchise forgotten by its creator, but beloved by many. I loved Bomb Rush Cyberfunk. With gameplay that modernizes and evolves the formula, excellent level design and challenges that encourage mastery of the game's mechanics, and an amazing soundtrack I'll be listening to for years to come, this game is everything I've wanted out of a modern Jet Set Radio game.